Perhaps we shouldn't be surprised by the collapse in the tourism industry in Vegas, as the city has transformed its very soul to isolate a private playground for the 1% customer base. That's right, the upper class. The glittering casinos, the luxurious hotels, all aimed at massive fortunes, while the majority of middle-class visitors who once made up the life and vibrancy of Vegas are left behind. What's the result? The once bustling streets are now deserted, the once lively buffets are completely empty, and tourism revenue is plummeting. But behind the lost revenue figures are real people who are suffering. Casino employees, hotel staff, and families who once dreamed of an exciting vacation, now facing difficult choices simply because this city forgot they existed. Vegas turned dreams into nightmares for everyone except the super rich. And what's concerning is that this isn't just a problem for one city. The decision to serve a narrow customer base is having broader economic and social consequences, threatening the entire US tourism industry. In today's video, we'll explore why bias toward the wealthy brought the entire Vegas tourism industry to its knees, revealing why a seemingly luxurious decision could lead an entire superpower to regret. Let's forget the days when Las Vegas was still the city for everyone. Vegas is no longer the place where poor workers from Mississippi and New York businessmen alike found an equal dream, where anyone could hope for a big win, or at least be treated the same under the neon lights. The city has gradually closed its doors to the majority, becoming an exclusive playground where fame and fortune are favored, while the majority of visitors, people like you and me, are left with only the glorious memories that this city has chosen to forget. Replacing the loyal middle-aged customer base, Vegas is turning toward a new market, Gen Z. They come just to create viral clips on Instagram or TikTok, then leave without leaving any lasting connection to the city. Today's image of Vegas is like a glamorous doll, meticulously crafted on the outside but empty at its core, lacking the soul that once made it a cultural landmark. As a result, Vegas is increasingly becoming a one-time visit stopover, rather than a place to return to multiple times as it used to be. That change didn't just stem from the social media craze, but also from how casino corporations calculate profits. Today, casino companies earn 80% of their profits from just 20% of their customers, and it is they, the whale players who spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, who are the center of the universe. They are showered with every privilege: VIP rooms, free restaurants, luxury sports tickets, complimentary valet service, and even secret passages exclusive to the super rich at the Bellagio. Meanwhile, the majority of budget travelers, who were once the soul of the city, are now reduced to the role of paying fees. A $55 resort fee, $30 valet, $22 cocktail, $26 bottle of water, or hours spent waiting to check in at a soulless self-service kiosk. Vegas isn't upgrading to bring you along, it's already surpassed you, or in other words, left you behind. Even the everyday experiences of budget travelers reveal a clear stratification. You land in Vegas on a cheap Spirit or Allegiant flight, drag your suitcase to the hotel, and wait in line for an hour to get a tiny room with a mandatory resort fee. Meanwhile, just a few steps away, the high roller is led through a secret door, where there's a separate check-in area, no waiting lines, and no public pickpocketing. And in another aspect, Vegas is entering a cold era of automation. Digital billboards, unmanned check-in counters, and robot bartenders at Tipsy Robot, all implemented to save costs, but they make the city even more distant from the majority. Ordinary people face the indifference of machines, while VIPs are still warmly welcomed and served by humans. In fact, a controversial story further clarified Vegas's priorities. Late one night, the Bellagio quietly cut down dozens of decades-old olive trees to build grandstands for the F1 race, then reassured the public that new trees would be replanted in pots. Behind that promise, Many trees still lie exposed on the street, waiting to be replaced. Another testament to how willing Vegas is to sacrifice its soul in exchange for the glittering lights. Perhaps it's a bit too much to say that Vegas wants to wipe you off their profit map. But clearly, Vegas is no longer in your favor. You are still needed here to pay the small fees, to keep the profit machine running, but all the bright lights, all the privileges that once made millions feel like they belonged, now only shine on the upper class. If a city that once represented the dream of equality is now only open to a select few, what meaning does that dream still hold? And if even Vegas is turning its back on those who nurtured its glamour, who will be the next to be left behind? Las Vegas today looks like a paradox. The airport is deserted, the streets are sparse, visitor numbers are down, yet casino CEOs confidently report to investors that the city is not collapsing. In fact, the number of visitors in the first half of 2025 has decreased by over 7% compared to the same period last year, with some months reaching -11% to -12%. However, during the same period, corporate revenues still reached record levels. How could this happen? Let's listen to the answers from the CEO of MGM Resorts and the following reports.
We're about to launch a fabulous Las Vegas campaign on behalf of the city, where the city is going to go on sale throughout the fall. But when you come to, and I'll give a simple example, Excalibur, when I'm charging $12 for Starbucks, okay, maybe we got a bit of a...
Did you hear it? He almost said the G word. What is the G word? He said if you haven't figured it out, the G word is greedy. They got greedy. They lost the script entirely.
That's right. The answer lies in a new business model, tightening public value to exploit the wallets of the few. $12 for a Starbucks at Excalibur, a hotel aimed at the budget segment. You might wonder how that's possible, but with a city that's good at turning dreams into reality, nothing is impossible. This unfortunate confession has become an indictment, suggesting that Vegas no longer cares about fair experiences for all, but is building a model to squeeze every last penny from regular guests while extending every privilege to the elite. That disparity is evident in every small detail. The Excalibur room is listed at $45, but actually costs over $90 after taxes and fees. Thin crust pizza is $12.99 in the food court. Soft drinks are $7 and shows push ticket prices up to $3,000 for Paul McCartney. Budget travelers have to pay more for fewer amenities, while high rollers get a host of things for free, from resort fees to valet service. More significantly, when asked about the decline in visitors, the CEO of MGM pointed to the low end, calling it the reason for Vegas's loss of visitors, and simultaneously stated that the focus was no longer on the domestic market. Instead, they target high-spending international travelers from Asia and the Middle East to major events like the World Cup or the Olympics. He even publicly suggested that the US government allocate additional budget to cover marketing expenses for the tourism industry rather than letting corporations pay for their own promotion. We can see more and more clearly that Vegas no longer prioritizes retaining budget travelers. Customers from Canada decreased by up to 40%, but the CEO still considered it only 3% of the structure, meaning it was unimportant. For them, the essential thing is to please investors and keep the stock in the green. The middle-class Americans, families who were once the backbone of Vegas tourism, suddenly became superfluous factors in a new global strategy. Behind the neon lights, the underlying causes are not just inflation or high operating costs. It was a deliberate choice, betting everything on the top 1% of customers and luxury events while shifting the burden of fees and prices onto the majority. If you have to pay $100 for a family meal at a food court or $50 a night just to be called a resort fee, the message is clear. Vegas is no longer for everyone, but only open to those who can afford the price, with a thick wallet. When a city is willing to sacrifice the majority to serve the minority, will it still retain the appeal that made it famous? And if the CEOs themselves admit to that excessive revenue, what will the long-term cost be for Vegas? A city that once shone 24/7 now has unexpected, cold, dark patches. As the wave of middle-class tourists leaves Las Vegas, spaces once bustling with people suddenly fall silent. Casinos, once symbols of luxury, have become empty shells, so much so that some are used as temporary shelters for the homeless. That paradox exposes the fragility of an economy that bets everything on a narrow group of customers. The first shock hit the labor force. In one night, thousands of service staff, housekeepers, security guards, and taxi drivers lost their jobs. The figure mentioned by local media sometimes exceeds 4,000 people in a single round of layoffs. For many families who live on their monthly salaries, this setback means losing their homes, insurance, and social standing. Some were reported to have had to set up tents in parking lots or seek temporary shelter around the city. Folding beds and relief meals became the new work, replacing the bustling days of serving at the buffet. The impact doesn't stop at direct labor. The supply chain around the tourism industry, from casual restaurants and souvenir shops to logistics companies, is all in turmoil. According to a report by the University of Nevada, the tourism industry contributes nearly 30% of jobs in Clark County. As demand declined, the unemployment spiral spread, sweeping away thousands of families. These aren't just dry numbers, but real stories. A single mother forced to leave her apartment when she could no longer afford rent. A former hotel employee queuing for free meals right near where they used to work. A city built on dreams and light has now become a giant refugee camp for abandoned lives. If even places once considered entertainment paradises can become havens for the homeless, then where else can be safe from the wave of economic instability? And what will happen when the government, already under budget pressure, turns its back on these people? Amidst that picture, solutions are still being mentioned. Some major corporations in the mobile housing and community healthcare sectors have begun partnering with cities to implement temporary shelter models, provide basic medical services, and support resettlement. Notably, these include collaborations with brands like Airbnb.org, which has previously implemented emergency housing during natural disasters, is being suggested as a direction to help alleviate the immediate crisis. If a city built on a glamorous illusion is now reduced to folding beds and tents, is that illusion still worth anything? And as the neon lights still shine, but thousands have no homes to return to, the biggest question is, who does Las Vegas really belong to? Perhaps the problem in Vegas isn't just economic disparity, but also a conflict of values. The short-term profits of a small group versus the survival of the entire community. Numbers speak for themselves. According to the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, in 2024 alone, over 250,000 jobs in the area are directly dependent on the tourism and entertainment industry. As the city pours all its resources into serving the 1% of ultra-wealthy guests, tens of thousands of employees in ordinary jobs, from waiters and receptionists to taxi drivers, are caught in a spiral of instability. Not everyone immediately lost their jobs, but many saw their incomes plummet, working hours cut, and benefits gradually disappear. The story of 62-year-old Linda is a prime example. After 25 years of working as a server at a famous buffet restaurant on the Strip, she was once proud of her job, which supported her family and helped her daughter complete college. But when the buffet was closed to make way for a fine dining restaurant, Mrs. Linda no longer had a place. Today, she lined up at the soup kitchen, right near what used to be a familiar workplace. That image captures a stark contrast. A generation that once nurtured the Vegas lights is now abandoned by the city itself. Meanwhile, the VIP rooms are still packed with guests, with whales spending hundreds of thousands of dollars in a single night. Vegas is still reporting high revenue, But that's the result of a strategy that prioritizes immediate profits. Instead of maintaining a diverse tourism community, the city accepts transforming itself into a lavish stage for the few. This strategy might please investors in the short term, but in the long run, it eats away at the very soul of Vegas. From a community perspective, the consequences are undeniable. When budget travelers disappeared, small businesses in the area also struggled. Family restaurants, laundromats, convenience stores, all of them relied on a steady stream of people. When the service supply chain is choked, the local community loses a pillar. A city exists to serve, but it forgets who truly needs it. In this situation, some solutions are being tested. Some hotel corporations, in partnership with non-profit organizations like the Marriott Foundation for Giving and the Hilton Global Foundation, have launched programs to support laid-off employees, providing new skills training and relocation assistance. Such initiatives cannot reverse the entire flow, but they at least show that there are still doors of hope, that profit and community are not necessarily two opposing worlds. If Las Vegas continues to prioritize the 1% over the majority, how long will the city retain the allure that once made it legendary? And more deeply, when a symbol of the city for everyone has been distorted, will the American dream still hold a place in the collective memory of future generations? When people think of Las Vegas, they often imagine it as just an isolated oasis of entertainment in the Nevada desert. But the collapse of the tourism industry here never stopped within the boundaries of the Strip. It's like a domino falling, triggering a chain of economic links, from aviation and local services to the entire US tourism ecosystem. The dazzling neon lights cannot hide the truth. When you eliminate the majority of budget customers, you not only lose a portion of your revenue, but also push the entire supply chain that relies on them into a crisis. According to data from the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, LVCVA, the number of international visitors to Las Vegas in 2024 has decreased by over 18% compared to pre-pandemic levels. Hotel room revenue, though maintained by price increases, saw a significant drop in occupancy during weekdays, when business and leisure travelers were absent. Empty rooms are not only a loss for the casino, but also for airlines that rely on direct flights to Vegas. Fewer passengers on each flight mean higher ticket prices, and this vicious cycle continues to make the general public hesitant to return. Right on the ground, the effects are clearly visible. The taxi stands that used to be crowded are now deserted, and drivers complain that their income has been cut by more than half. Many small restaurants around the Strip, which cater to family groups looking for casual meals, were forced to close early, and not a few establishments have shut down permanently. The disparity is becoming increasingly evident. Only Michelin-starred restaurants or high-end bars have a chance of survival, but that small number cannot replace the revenue that once came from millions of ordinary customers. The domino effect also extended far beyond the city limits. Nevada, a state where nearly 40% of tax revenue depends on tourism, faltered when Vegas lost visitors. From the state, the wave spread nationwide. A gated community for the wealthy. Las Vegas sends a bad message to the international market. America is no longer a destination friendly to all classes. Meanwhile, other cities like Austin and Nashville are seizing the opportunity to attract the very group of customers that Vegas is losing. With street music, local cuisine, and reasonable costs, they are gradually becoming an alternative for a soulful vacation instead of a glamorous but cold one. The problem is no longer just Vegas's concern. If a destination once considered a tourism capital can sever its ties with the middle-class tourist community on its own, it's also a warning for the US tourism industry. A strategy overly focused on 1% not only erodes the trust of domestic tourists, but also weakens competitiveness against international destinations that are promoting a friendly and diverse image. In the long run, it could diminish the US's position as a global tourism superpower. If Vegas can fall just because it forgets the majority, then the more pressing question is, which city will be the next domino in this chain? And when will the American tourism industry realize that the community is the true foundation of sustainability? There's a paradox unfolding in Las Vegas. The neon lights are still bright. The lavish promotional campaigns are still relentless. But just beneath the surface is a city teetering on the brink of a historical crossroads. Tourism crisis, declining visitor numbers, job losses. All of this is putting Vegas before a life or death question. Will it be reborn by opening its arms to all classes, or will it remain closed in the luxury-only world and isolate itself? Reality shows that the only for the rich strategy has quickly eroded mass appeal. According to a report by the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, the return rate of visitors to the city has dropped to less than 50%, while a decade ago, this figure was typically over 70%. In other words, Vegas is no longer holding the majority's attention, but is becoming a one-time destination, where guests come to show off their photos and then leave forever. If this trend continues, the city will gradually lose its appeal in the minds of international tourists and Americans alike. But the future isn't all doom and gloom. There's still a chance for rebirth if Vegas dares to look back at itself. Instead of choosing luxury over the common, the city can combine both, building a diverse tourism ecosystem. In California, some cities have adopted an inclusive tourism model, retaining premium services for wealthy guests while also investing in public spaces, free festivals, and affordable dining options for the community. As a result, they maintained a stable flow of customers, not entirely dependent on a single segment. Vegas could certainly learn from this model if it has the courage to change. In that scenario, ordinary people become the measure of change. Imagine a retired couple in their 70s who have visited Vegas many times during its heyday. They don't need a $1,000 penthouse suite. They just want an affordable hotel, a simple buffet, and a bit of the lively atmosphere of the Strip. But right now, all of that is gradually disappearing. Will Vegas still have room for them to return, or will those memories only be stories to tell their grandchildren? The problem lies in the city's own choices. If it continues to chase short-term profits and push costs to unreasonable levels, Vegas will isolate itself. But if we know how to tap into the soul of the city for everyone, where both the rich and the poor have a place, the neon lights will not only be a superficial layer, but will also reflect the spirit of tolerance that once made Vegas legendary. If Vegas changes, will it still be in time? And if the neon lights continue to shine only for the few, then one day, who will be left to admire them? Las Vegas used to be a place where everyone found a part of themselves. A few coins in a slot machine, a cheap but satisfying buffet, or simply the feeling of being part of the endless stream of people on the Strip. But as the city chose to close itself off, betting everything on a small number of high-end guests, it also simultaneously cut off the very soul that had nourished it for decades. The truth is, Vegas didn't collapse overnight. It erodes slowly through decisions that seem like mere business strategies. And then, as the neon lights still glow, but beneath them are cramped tents and empty hotel rooms, we have to ask ourselves, does a city truly exist if it no longer belongs to the majority? If you've witnessed these changes, or feel that Vegas today isn't what you remember, please share your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video so more people can join this conversation. Because sometimes, the only way to keep the light burning is to remind each other that it was once lit for everyone. The content in this video is compiled from public sources, independent reports, and analyses, with the aim of informing and educating the community. The video does not make absolute claims, nor does it aim to defame or attack any organization or individual. All data and figures mentioned are subject to change over time and should be further verified from official sources. Viewers should consider and consult various sources before drawing any conclusions.